Are you tiring of pro wrestling, finding it boring or dull? Maybe you even feel like it is dying. We gotta talk. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate because I have worked in front of the cameras as a professional wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and commentator too. But I have also worked behind the scenes in wrestling as a promoter, booker, agent, coach, and consultant. And I bring the sum total of all these experiences and a bunch of other gigs I've done in wrestling too. And I serve it up right here each and every week on the Till We Make It YouTube channel. If you're down with that, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, join the Till We Make It tribe, subscribe down below, and enable notifications as well by clicking on that little bell icon. It really helps me out. If you'd be so kind, leave a like, because apparently I'm waiting until it's too late in the videos to ask for this crucial engagement signal. I know I'm asking for a lot at the top of this. Don't worry. We're really going to deliver big time on the back end of this one. I promise. This week, I happen to be talking with a former trainee of mine who right now has one foot in wrestling and the other foot out the door. And in a roundabout way, what we were talking about is how formulaic current day pro wrestling product is. Where once there had been all these regional flavors and variations in wrestling, all of those unique features have been shaved off, resulting in a whole lot of product out there that smacks of a certain sameness. In the past, the regional nuances of wrestling, those local flavors, were more distinct. They were more obvious. A tag team match made in the Carolinas in the United States felt nothing like a tag team match from the British Midlands, and that bore no resemblance whatsoever to a tag team match that you might see on a Friday night at Arena Mexico. But the main driving force behind this homogenization, this making everything feel the same, has been the WWE's ubiquity. Not just their dominance, right? They've gobbled up WCW and ECW in decades past. They bumped enough European wrestling off stations abroad to make a difference, but it's their ever-presence in the global conversation. So much so that even intriguing outliers like Lucha Underground, as a recent example, could never reach enough mass market acceptance to instigate any real change. The reality of today is, whether you live in Nebraska or Nigeria or Nepal, if somebody brings up pro wrestling, chances are people think WWE first and foremost. WWE production, style, and stars. The end result of all of this is something I have felt, and I know other people are feeling it too. The formula for making current day pro wrestling is resulting in really predictable content. And the rate at which it is being churned out, combined with that homogenization process, is resulting in a glut of less than interesting wrestling. If you only love the current day product that gets produced 6, 8, a dozen times every single week, then it's really easy to slip into what I call wrestling malaise. You know what I mean by that term? It's an uneasiness or dissatisfaction that can be very difficult to pinpoint or articulate, but it is real, and it's a key indicator that burnout might be coming for you. To combat this, my friends, I want to offer you this insight, coming directly from someone who has battled wrestling malaise and more than one period of complete burnout. It's this: you need to love the art of pro wrestling more than you love the current product, because more times than not, the current product is just more of that predictable formula. And as the WWE increases its global footprint and influence, that is only going to become more and more the case in the future. To me, a telltale symptom of the formula is paint by numbers wrestling. You know what I mean? Here's an example of following the instructions exactly step by step. I'm going to do my 3-bump comeback, and then I'm going to make this one facial expression, and I'll vocalize by saying, "Come on," or "Let's go," and then I'll make this one gesture with my balled up fist to show that I'm catching fire, and then we're gonna go right into the false finishes. And this is gonna be roughly the same comeback as the match before me on the card, and roughly the same as the match coming after me on the card. It's as if we are giving every pro wrestler a giant bag of Legos with which they could make anything, but they all make roughly the same car. Because the WWE's blueprint is so influential over both wrestling organizations and individual pro wrestlers, although they have the capacity and the tools to make me a dragon, well, you know what? This is what the industry leader is doing, so you know what? Maybe it's safer if we just make the car again. And after seeing enough of that formula replicated and replicated and replicated, well, it's no surprise people lose interest in that product. I don't love the product of wrestling, which is a repugnant term, and I apologize for the overuse of air quotes in today's video. But I do love the art of wrestling. I love discovering how it intersects with other things that interest me, like circus arts or martial arts films, or things that I'm passionate about, like comic books and storytelling. I love teaching about wrestling, whether at my Wrestle Factory or when I'm out on the road teaching seminars all over the place. I love writing about wrestling. You probably know I've written more than my fair share of books about wrestling. I love sharing my ideas about it, whether it's here on YouTube or over on my Patreon page. And I love discovering something new in the world of wrestling that I never knew was there before. And I want to encourage you, whenever you're feeling the creep of the malaise, whenever you feel it's coming around the corner looking for you, to pull back from your micro view on a single current product to a macro view of wrestling. And I'll explain that a little bit. So here's an opinion that reflects a micro view of wrestling. This year, I've been really disappointed with AEW. All the starts and stops with certain wrestlers, the storylines that never seem to resolve in a satisfying or fulfilling way. Maybe every once in a great while something cool makes TV or there's a fun match on a pay-per-view, but overall I have found it to be a lot like fast food. It's not very satisfying in the long term. The minute I turn it off, I'm actually craving something more satisfying. Well, I don't need to be in love with that current product right now. You know what it cost me to not be watching AEW this year? Nothing. Actually, it gives me more free time to focus on things that I do like. And staying locked in that point of view is going to increasingly make me feel negative about my pro wrestling experience as a whole. So I need to pull back from that micro view into a broader macro view so that I can find something else within the sphere of wrestling that I enjoy, that fosters my love of the art form. I'm a big believer in specificity, so I want to give you some specific examples of exact things I've been enjoying this year that don't feel anything like the formula. You know what's been really good this year? Italian wrestling. I've watched more episodes of SIW's System than I have SmackDown. No joke. Australian wrestling is on the rise. 2 years from now, everyone's going to be buzzing about Ricky South and Mick Moretti. Treat yourself to some Australian wrestling. You know what's rebounded big time? Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. And I think Go Shiozaki is better than he's ever been. His selling pulls me into every single match. Will someone just beat him up and let him sell? Please and thank you. You know who's been a real surprise this year? El Hijo del Vikingo in AAA. He's more than just that imploding 450 splash. This kid is not just a one-trick pony. And a lot of his best matches from this year are on YouTube to watch for free, including a banger he just had with Ray Phoenix. You know what book I've been enjoying this year? This one, Pro Wrestling Finishing Holds by Gene LaBelle. It's from 1985. My friend Joe loaned me this, and Judo Gene passed away earlier this year. That's what made me crack this open all over again. I love that he calls the parachute hold the figure 4 double ouch for some reason. Why is it called that? I don't know. Is anybody going to correct Gene LaBelle? No, certainly not Steven Seagal. Here are a couple more recommendations of things I've seen recently that have stoked my love for wrestling. The great Sasuke documentary by Makiko Sasaki that was put up here on YouTube maybe a year or two ago. It's just over an hour long. Every minute of it is delicious. The tag team match, best 2 out of 3 falls. FTR versus the Briscoe brothers from Death Before Dishonor. Everything meant something in that match for like 45 straight minutes. And I loved the finish. The Wonder of Stardom title match from earlier this month at the top of November with the craziest avalanche DDT you will ever see. Seek it out. I love digging for wrestling that has never been put through the homogenization process. And that means oftentimes I've got to look to the past for a wellspring of inspiration. And here's some more stuff that I love. Earlier this week, I found right here on YouTube a 1982 episode of Titanes en el Ring I had never seen before, recorded right off of Argentine TV. And I'm going to tell you very quickly, the main event of this episode is company founder Martin Karadagian, who wears a bathrobe to the ring, fighting Satan. I wish this episode was 57 hours long instead of 57 minutes long. I've been watching Razor Ramon enhancement matches from his arrival in the World Wrestling Federation. Not only does this have my favorite character ritual in all of wrestling, it's like a master class in building equity. And Razor Ramon can get more out of a one-act, 3-minute long match than some people given 20 minutes and a full 3 acts can. It's awesome. I've been watching Michinoku Pro stuff between October 1996 and December 1996. So after the success of their These Days card at Sumo Hall, they basically become the darlings of the pro wrest scene, and they spend the next 12 weeks continuously trying to top themselves, including 2 more epic length 10-man tag matches, one of which is under elimination rules, and all of it is awesome. Look up the Jumping Bomb Angels matches available on the Peacock network. They don't have a whole lot of matches in the WWF, but the ones that are there are mind-blowing. And for the best context, watch the match right before them on the card and the match right after them on the card. That comparing and contrasting is a revelation. Okay, I could go on and on with more things that I have loved this year in pro wrestling, but that's enough. I want to hear from you. What have you enjoyed this year in pro wrestling? Put it for me down below in the comments. And if you want to expand that context, your understanding of pro wrestling, check out my book, Pro Wrestling History. 6 Threads and 16 Decades talks about innovations and unsung heroes. Watch how I nimbly avoid dull topics like the Monday Night Wars to focus on the stories that haven't been told enough. I guarantee you're going to learn something and come away with a newfound appreciation for one aspect of pro wrestling you never knew about before.